Hey guys, I was tagged in a video by TB46667, Tom. It is a 5 random facts that nobody could care about yourself, I suppose. And I can't really think of anything. I'm not really prepared, and my mind is a little bit preoccupied at the moment because I just found something in my basement that I thought I left in Tucson was gone forever, and it's in my hands right now, and I'm shaking because I'm so excited about it. And I'm going to make a separate video about that right after I do this. And we'll just set it down and we'll get this started. A few random facts right off the bat that I can think of that maybe nobody's interested in is I moved up to Washington from Arizona last year, which I've mentioned several times in previous videos. The reason I did this was because the job I had in Tucson, there was no advancement for me. I couldn't get any raises, I could not get any bonuses. They had frozen bonuses. I was able to get bonuses at one point, but they had frozen them indefinitely because they were using all the funding that they were receiving from the state, the company that I worked for, that is, to line their pockets, or I don't know what they were doing. They were a shady company. They're a large company. They're based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. They're called Danville Services, and they treated me well. The people that I worked with, for the most part, they often forgot that I worked there, which was kind of a fun thing, because I was so disconnected from that company that I wasn't in their hair, and so conversely they were out of mine and my wife's. I guess I could tell you a little bit about that. That would be a random fact. My wife is upstairs on the phone with her sister right now, and she has a physical disability, and I provide care for her, and that is what my job is. So in Arizona there was no room for advancement. We weren't really making ends meet very well, and I wasn't making very much money, and it was told to us that there was a better system in place here in the state of Washington, which for the most part is semi-true. We're kind of exploring other avenues, and we're going to find out if we should move again or not. And at the moment I'm actually getting pay increases, which are going to be very helpful, but I also just got my W-2, and in the area where it says federal income tax withheld, it says $0.00 for the year, so I gotta figure out what the fuck happened. And another random fact, I guess this would be 3, is that I am a cat lover. I have 8 cats. Don't tell anybody, don't tell my landlord. And I have no shame in that. I like animals in general. I'm not a big fan of seeing or hearing about animals being abused or killed. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan or anything. I know where my hamburgers come from and stuff like that, but I'm not somebody that would go out and hunt, and I don't like hearing about other people's hunting trips. So that being said, we'll just get off of that altogether. And I have a cat down here rubbing on the tripod, so if it bumps like it just did, that was her rubbing on it, wasn't it? She pretty much lives in the basement down here, and she's rubbing on my foot. Okay, another random fact is that I wrote a couple of articles for this magazine, Collectible Toys and Values magazine. This magazine was in and out of publication a few times during the 90s, and by the time I had my articles ready, it had gone out of business, and I wasn't told about it until a couple of months after it had happened, because there were usually delays on these issues. Like, it was supposed to be a monthly magazine, but sometimes it took about 2-3 months for one to come out, and that was because the publisher down here, oh, they're not, it doesn't say the publisher's name down at the bottom, but the publisher that bought this magazine and brought it back the second time that it had come back from being out of circulation, ended up screwing the publisher, the guy that made the magazine. His name is Jim Main, and they did something really bad to him and screwed him over, and thusly this magazine, it went out of business completely. There's a lot of interesting stuff in these old toy magazines, like Toy Fair reports, which just happened right now. Actually, Toy Fair just happened right now over the weekend, and when the Alien and Predator toys from Kenner came out back in the 90s, the Predator line actually had human figures planned for it. There was going to be a Dutch figure, and there was going to be a Billy figure, and they all were going to have like gimmicks and stuff. Like Billy's name was Big Knife Billy, because he had the giant knife and he cut himself with it. He was probably going to come with a knife the size of the figure itself. If I'm thinking in Kenner logic, that's probably what it would have been. And yeah. A lot of interesting stuff that never happened in toys, and as you all know from my past pickup videos, I do love toys, action figures, and in addition to video games. I'm also an avid horror fan. I like monsters, I like science fiction, I like kaiju. Ever since I was a little kid, I was a big fan of stuff that had monsters or scary things in it, even though they scared me, if it was nighttime in particular, but I was pretty fine with them during the day. But at nighttime, that was a different story altogether. Loved that stuff. And then we went to the drive-in one evening when I was the ripe old age of about 5 years old. And we saw Friday the 13th Part 2, and it was playing with My Bloody Valentine, and I had never seen really violent slasher type movies before. Before that, it was all like Godzillas and King Kongs, and it came from outer space, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or whatever was on TV, like Creature from the Black Lagoon, anything that was on Saturdays. So seeing somebody get their throat cut open and have blood coming out of it really, really it terrified me. I was horrified by that stuff. So much so that I didn't want to watch horror movies or anything that I perceived as being really, really scary or violent until I got to be about 9 years old. I got a little bolder and was with my grandmother at the video store, and I just started kind of picking out horror movies from the horror section and taking them back to my grandmother's house and watching them on her VCR, because my family didn't have one, because I grew up poor, and that would be another fact. And yeah, I basically got bolder and bolder watching these horror videos that I would bring home, and they were gorier and gorier and more violent every time, and they had titties and blood, and it was just stuff that I could handle it, but it still got to me a little bit. But as I got older and older, I continued to watch the same types of movies, and they didn't scare me anymore once I reached about 10 or 12 years old. I was okay with them. They didn't give me bad dreams or keep me up at night or anything like that. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of that whole genre. and have been for a long time, and that's about it as far as that goes. I don't know if these are decent enough facts for you guys, but I did my best. Oh yeah, I got another one for you. This was random for me. A really long time ago, my friend Lewis took me to this wrestling show in Arizona and Tucson. It was a local wrestling show, and he wanted me to take some pictures for his fanzine that he was writing and publishing himself at the time. I have all of them here somewhere. And the day that we went there, the guy that ran the promotion talked to him and said that he wanted him to work that night. By work that night, he wanted him to wrestle. And my friend was not trained yet. He was a big fan, but he hadn't had any training of any sort. And the guy, the promotion runner, Ronnie, trained him that day and started him working matches that day. And I was taking pictures from the stands for the zine. And he ended up becoming an amateur pro wrestler that day, and continued to be for a few years. And he now, I think, is running or co-running an independent wrestling promotion in Arizona called AYP Wrestling, or I think that's what it is. I'm sorry if it's not. If you're watching, Lewis, I might be confusing it with the other guy. And that was really cool. But the thing is, they didn't just recruit my friend, they decided to drag me into it as a referee because I didn't want to wrestle, but I did take quite a few bumps on accident. I got kicked in the face one time by one guy, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't watch wrestling on a regular basis anymore, and so it was all kind of confusing if you weren't in the moment, and I tend to get distracted pretty easily. And there was one match in particular that I remember where the guy, one of the wrestlers, was on the mat and he had his back down, and the other guy was pinning him. And I was just standing there watching, and the guy on the mat yelled at me, "Count it!" So I was like, "Oh shit, yeah!" And so I got down and 1, 2, 3, and real slow because I wasn't sure if he was going to kick out or not. And he was just furious with me. The fans told me how horrible I was in the driving in the driveway on the way out that night. But they kept me on board as a referee for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't like doing it, and I didn't know how to say no. But it was a fun experience, and there was a couple of UFC fighter guys that were leaving Ultimate Fighting because at that point in time, this was a long time ago, Ultimate Fighting wasn't on television. You could only see it on pay-per-view. And that frustrated a lot of the people that were involved in Ultimate Fighting. So what a few of the guys did was they left Ultimate Fighting to go to professional wrestling, which was on every week, sometimes twice a week, because they thought it was going to be easy. And they ended up getting hurt. And they went back to fighting because they were getting hurt in wrestling. So, yeah, it's always funny to think about things like that. Like, one guy in particular was Don Fry. Big dude, scary looking guy, huge hands. I shook his hands. His hands were friggin' like 3 times the size of one of mine, and I would not want to be punched by that man. Forgot the other guy's name. He was funny. My friend Lewis used to rib him a lot. He would say something like, "Ultimate Fighting is fake, wrestling is real." he would body check Lewis, and Lewis would go flying because this guy was friggin' huge. But you know, so those are some facts for you, random ones. I'm sorry I rambled so long. I really did want to keep this shorter. I just didn't know, I didn't have anything prepared, and I wanted to get this done and not procrastinate. So I don't know who I'm going to tag, so if anybody feels like responding to this, 5 random facts. They don't have to be gaming related, but they can be. And everybody take care, and I'll talk to you guys next time. I'll have a pickup video coming soon. It's going to be mostly toy related because I didn't buy very many games this month. So you guys take care of yourselves.